All right, I'm going to do a little jingle. Do. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is Behind the Start Line. My name is Eric Burnett. I am your host. And with me, as always, is CEO of P3R, our co-host, Troy Schooley. So very exciting time right now in I should say Pennsylvania and Maryland region. We've got a very cool event going on that normally takes place over the course of 2 days, but because of COVID-19, we have a virtual edition happening this year that is giving us our participants 8 weeks in order to complete the course. It is the GAP Relay. It stands for the Great Allegheny Passage Relay, and it's a 150-mile race. It's a relay race that starts, and correct me if I'm wrong, Troy, you guys, we switched it this year, correct?
We switched it this year. The first 2 years we started in Cumberland, Maryland, and ended in Pittsburgh. This year we switched, starting in Pittsburgh, ending in Cumberland. Now, obviously we turned it virtual so you can run wherever you want.
Right.
But our intention this year was to take it reverse because we had so many teams the first couple of years run both first 2 years from Cumberland to Pittsburgh, wanted to see different aspects of the trail, different, exchange zones and things like that. So
yeah, that's smart. And I can imagine a lot of the participants too were, with the race beginning on Friday, it was probably a challenge for them to get out of work and get down to Cumberland. And, it was probably just much more convenient for Pittsburghers to start here, have to take less of a day off of work and,
Yeah, it was a logistics thing for sure. We thought about the drive to Cumberland, having to come the whole way back to Pittsburgh, and it was just easier to start here in Pittsburgh. But we do want to alternate though, because Eric, this event, this would have been our third year live. It's turned into one of our favorite events for our staff. And you wouldn't think that because literally we work for 30 hours straight, right? This is a 24-hour relay that we don't stop, right? But this event has turned into something not just for the runners. Selfishly, I say this, our staff freaking loves this event because we've grown to love the little towns along the trail. The Great Allegheny Passage is amazing, by the way. If you haven't been out there, you got to check it out and do the whole thing.
Yep.
Do the whole thing, go from Pittsburgh to Cumberland, check out Frostburg, Maryland, Myersdale, all these awesome little towns along the trail. It's awesome. But our staff, we just bond together. Normally you wouldn't want to see a staff member or a coworker at 3 a.m. But when we see each other, we're like, hey, what's up? How's it going here? How many teams have passed? We're checking out, crazy stories because it's in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere.
Sure. People are wearing headlamps and
it's nuts.
Like you said, dodging deer. And I got to imagine in a lot of ways from the management standpoint that you guys have, it's a lot like the Amazing Race or something like that, where it's just you get one zone completed and it's just all right, we got to go. Let's get to the next one. And
it's logistically, it's not fun. Let's make that very clear. We like when the event happens, but leading up to it, Dylan Junker, one of our ops managers, it's his baby. He's done such a great job kind of refining it since the first year. The second year got better. And, that was the toughest part about the first year is we didn't know when these people were going to hit certain exchange zones because, we only have we have a full-time staff of 25, but we had volunteers, we had event staff, right? Well, what we found out year one was because they're running in the dark, like I said, in the middle of nowhere, like Ohio Pile, that. You hear, you see eyeballs that are usually raccoons or deers, and you hear the creek, right?
Right.
So what we found out is that people are running their fastest times ever. So a lot of them, we weren't staffed at. So the first year, embarrassingly, we had to hold some of our runners at our exchange zones because we didn't have further exchange zones being manned yet.
Yeah,
because they're running so fast. I'll never forget. I got to Ohio Pal Bruner's Run, which is one of our favorites. It's you drive off the beaten path 10 miles and go down this trail. And I get there and Dylan's all flustered. He's like, they're finishing faster. It's not lining up on our, on our sheet, on our Excel sheet. I'm like, well, let's figure it out now.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to people hey, what did you put on your mileage? Cause we asked for pacing, and this lady, within 2 minutes of me asking, this lady finishes. She's like, oh my gosh, I've never ran so fast in my life. I think I saw a bear back there. I saw 5 deer, scared shitless. Right? Yeah. But then we figured out is that these people are running so fast because they're in the middle of nowhere in the dark. So we just had to adjust to these people running faster. And then this might sound bad, but these people love this. It's an adrenaline rush.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, you can run 5 miles in the, in North Park anytime.
Right.
You can't run 5 or 10 miles in the middle of Ohio Pile at 11 o'clock at night when it's pitch dark.
Right.
So we adjusted a year too, and yet last year was so much smoother. It's one of those events, like logistically, you become better each year because you learn more and more about the participants. Right.
Sure. Yeah. So it's basically Amazing Race meets Fear Factor. That's the thing that you have to, that you didn't account for, is that the element of fear, and these people are running on fear. But that's fear,
no cell phone service in some of the sections.
Yeah,
like I said, Bruner's Run, that area below Connellsville. It's like no man's land. It's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful, but it is in the middle of nowhere. And it gives this adrenaline to these teams and these participants that by the end, when we see them on Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, they're like, wow, that was an experience.
Yeah.
They just leave it an experience, right? It might've been bad or good, or they might've had a good, good runs, or they might be, but what we want to do is leave them with the experience, and we do that on the trail.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see all the volunteers. Usually the gap runs through like their backyard or their farm. And they might only own, 50 yards or 100 yards of the gap, but they're so passionate about maintaining that and keeping it clean. So to see all these people come together over a 150 mile stretch, that's why there are so many entities, whether it be, private or public, owned officials along the trail. Like it is awesome to see these people that are so passionate about something that most of the time's in their backyard.
So folks, if you don't know already, the Gap Relay this year is a virtual event, but with the virtual nature of it comes some very exciting facts. We've got participants from all around the country. Not just that, though, all around the world participating in this year's Gap Relay.
That's a hell of a marketing job that our team has done with the Gap Relay. London, Berlin, Germany, LA, San Diego, Montreal. They're represented around the world. And really, this wouldn't be possible without the help of UPMC Health Plan. They've been a title sponsor since day one. This year, they donated 100 free teams. 100. So the first, we sold out in, I think, 22 hours of the first 100. It was amazing.
In a virtual event.
Now free's pretty good from a marketing standpoint. Free usually works.
Yep.
But at the same time, these people have all went online and donated to the ATA. And that's what this event, that's what the cause of this event is, to be able to raise funds for the ATA.
Yep.
And, to go from a larger amount this year than last year with a virtual event is a big deal. And UPMC Health Plan plays a major role in that. And the cool thing is, like, we're following these people now on social. So just like the Pittsburgh Marathon, we're able to see this person in Berlin or Montreal finish their legs essentially on Ohio Pile or Frostburg, Maryland. So it all comes together really cool.
It's so neat. And again, there's a silver lining to everything. And I really do think that there's so many cool opportunities that have presented themselves because of the nature of what we're going through right now. And what you guys have done with the Gap Relay this year, and you've really just like taken advantage of the virtual nature of it. It's just really exciting stuff. You're bringing the world together.
Absolutely. And I think the great part about this is that, yes, these aren't the circumstances that we signed up for. We'd rather be out there on the Gap Trail. I think these people are going to be super excited to come back in 2021. These people are going to be excited to see the actual locations that they ran virtually this year, because I guarantee that most of them have never heard of Markleton, PA, right? Or nobody's ran through Ohio Pile.
Yep.
And it's exciting. It's going to be exciting to see these people come back and say, "Hey, I ran with you virtually last year. I just had to see it."
Yeah. What better place to come to if, like, say it's their first time to America? What an awesome place to see and to experience over that many miles at that time of year. I did want to let everyone know that there will be halfway point updates. I'm going to be filming them myself, and we're hoping that you all participating in the Gap Relay will send in as much media as possible, whether it be photos, videos, even just little blurbs, little shout outs to people who are on your team, because I'm going to be doing my best to include those in our halfway point update, as well as the final broadcast that we're going to be connecting to you guys via P3R's website. So again, this is just a call. If you're listening right now and you're a part of this year's Gap Relay virtually, please do everything you can to just have fun on social media and to share all the photos and everything that you guys take together. This one's a unique one on the calendar for sure. And I mean, it's no small surprise that runners are all about it, because every runner in some way, shape, or form is a little bit crazy, and you have different levels of crazy when it comes to runners out there. But this sort of experience, like you said, is something that a lot of runners crave. There's so many elements that you're out in the wild. You're like wild in the wild. And you also are a part of a team. You're doing it together. You're covering 150 miles with friends, family members. Sometimes, whenever I was emceeing the finish line last year, I was reading up on these stories and interviewing some of the folks afterwards. And, some of the people I thought were the most interesting stories were the ones who didn't know each other before this race.
And get a team of 8 together that they've never met each other and stay in a van for 24 hours. Like, it's nuts.
What a way to get to know each other.
What a way to get it. Like, and they become friends. Like, a couple of those teams registered again this year together.
Yeah.
I mean, we obviously hoped it was going to be live. They were going to go back at it.
I believe
and that's the cool part about the running community is like you develop these friends, especially in this event. I mean, you talk about like craziness, right? I think this is like a lot of people's like dipping their toes in crazy, right? Yeah. It's not like they're become an ultra marathoner, because a team of 8, you can run, 15 to 22 miles, right? Yeah. It's like dipping the toe. It's like, all right, instead of running a half marathon, I'm going to run a half marathon in pitch black with a headlamp on in weather conditions. The last 2 years, the event's been in October. It was 35 and raining the first year. Right. So they're like dipping their toes in crazy. And then when they're done with it, I think we've made them fully crazy.
Oh yeah. They just want to do it again. They're like, let's go back.
Let's go do another one. Yeah. Let's run this back.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's so cool. I mean, it was one of those things, and we're going to have Josh, our guest, is logging on. So we're going to go to him in just a second, but I just wanted to kind of leave with the thought of that. After emceeing it last year, I immediately wanted to do it. I wanted to get a group of my college running buddies and get after it. And we're still planning on doing it at some point. I think with the date shift, it made things a little bit complicated, and then with COVID. But next year you can count on the craziness happening, because I'll figure out a way to do a leg so that I'm there to MC the finish line.
MC the finish line. We need you at the finish line, but I'll be there. You can join in the middle of the night. And one thing we haven't talked about, right, is this goes to an unbelievable cause. Like, we've been able to give a lot of money to the Allegheny Trail Alliance, which maintains the gap, which is so important. Like I said, it's a beautiful trail. The ATA maintains that trail, but we're raising, this year we're on track to raise $25,000 for the ATA. Oh, and that helps that helps the Great Allegheny Passage stay clean, stay beautiful. In our partnership with the ATA, Brian Perry's the executive director, and Eric, I know you know him. He's an unbelievable guy that just is so passionate about that trail and about the maintenance and keeping it beautiful, and really educating people about the trail. Like it's if you, like I said, if you haven't been there, you got to get out, take a bike ride, take a run on the trail, and just kind of discover all the awesome towns in southwestern PA and Maryland. You can't forget about Maryland.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's such a worthy cause and such an amazing thing to get fired up about. And the ATA, it's an incredible organization. And another incredible organization that's a big part of the GAP Relay is the Pennsylvania Environmental Council. There it is. We're going to call them the PEC from here on out. We're going with. But we have a very special guest, our guest for the second episode. I'm going to bring him on in just a second, but I'm going to introduce him first. His name is Josh Raulerson, and he is the communications director at PEC. And we're going to have him join right now. Let's see if I can click this button correctly. Here we go.
You're there, Josh. Hey,
Troy. How are you?
Good.
Josh, I'm Eric Burnett. We may have met last year. May have not. I know things are kind of crazy at the finish line, but I was the MC there, kind of welcoming you guys across the line.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So
yeah, good to meet you. Maybe.
Yeah. Right. Maybe for the second time.
Maybe yeah. There you go.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're super excited to have you on our second episode of the podcast tonight. We know that you're just a major part of the PEC and a major contributor to the GAP Relay, which we're kind of in the midst of right now, which is really exciting. Not only is the company that you work for a big part of the race, but you compete in the race as well. Is that correct?
That's right. We fielded a single 8-person team back in 2018 for the first event. And then last year we doubled that and added a second team. And this year we've got 2 8-person teams and an ultra team. And I am not on the ultra team, but I am participating. I was there for the last 2, and I'm coming back for this year. So super excited about it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's right. Another thing that we've done this year is have 2-person teams of 60 miles, which each run 30. So this year we had 2-people teams, 4-people teams, 6-people teams, and 8-people teams.
Right.
So yeah, the great thing about virtual is that we can expand however we want to do it versus sticking with the Gap Trail. But Josh, we see you guys and we see the team along the trail. And I remember the first year we were trying to figure it out, right? As well as all the teams, and me and Eric spoke about that. Tell us about one of your most memorable experiences on that first year, because one of my most, and this might be yours, which I don't want to take the thunder away, is pulling up to Deal, Pennsylvania. I don't think many people knew that there was a Deal, Pennsylvania, but your boss, David, he pulls a grill out of his caravan and starts cooking breakfast for you guys in the middle of the morning. Like that image will stick with me forever. So tell me yours, and I hope that's not yours, but
it's definitely up there in mine. I was there at Deal waiting and just sort of eating for hours and hours, and it made the time pass. But yeah, that's David. That's who he is. He loves to cook, and he loves to feed his team and anybody else that happens by. So we made a lot of new friends.
Yep.
That day. I would have to say my most indelible memory from that first race is about 2:30 a.m. I'm asleep in the front seat of a van, and somebody wakes me up, and I go out, and it's pouring rain, and it's like total darkness in some little town that I guess I had ridden the Gap before, so I'd been through there, but it did not look familiar to me. Nothing looked familiar.
Nothing looks familiar at 2:30 a.m. It just looks dark and wet.
Right.
Dark. So that was an experience I have never had, running, I don't know, like 5 or 6 miles through total dark. It was like I had rolled out of bed, like woken from a dream into another weird dream. And then, that was how the day went. And yeah, that's the one I will never forget, but a lot of memories from that first race.
I'm sure it's countless ones for sure. Tell us a little bit about what you and the PEC does. I mean, just in general, but obviously as well, in relation to the Gap. Just give us a little glimpse of what your day-to-day looks like.
Sure. Yeah. Well, about PEC, Pennsylvania Environmental Council is an environmental nonprofit established in 1970. So we're celebrating our 50th anniversary year this year. So that's exciting.
Congrats. It's awesome.
We were founded, we were here before there was a Department of Environmental Protection, before there was an EPA. We are one of the oldest environmental organizations still operating in Pennsylvania. And kind of throughout that history, what we have been is a convener and a facilitator. We work on all kinds of environmental conservation projects, but the way we work on them is kind of what makes PEC special, and that is through partnerships, through networks. We'll work with anybody that's interested in making a difference in the areas that we're focused on, whether that's the private sector, government agencies or elected officials, communities, other NGOs, individuals, anybody that shares a commitment to improving the quality of life for all Pennsylvanians. For our mission, we define that as a healthy environment and access to opportunities to enjoy it, essentially. So to that end, we do a lot of work in trails and recreation. So that's the immediate tie into the Gap here. In fact, the Pennsylvania Environmental Council had a lot to do with the effort to get the Gap built in the first place. We were one among many players in that, obviously, but we continue to have a strong relationship, with the Gap, both historically through that role and also through our ongoing work with trail towns in the Laurel Highlands conservation landscape, and our very close relationship with the Allegheny Trail Alliance. In fact, the president of the ATA board is a PEC employee, so we go together. We're just pushing for effective environmental laws and regulations. Right now, that means climate. I mean, I don't care who you are, where you're from, it all kind of comes back to climate in some ways.
And I think that goes with our kind of the unique partnership we have with P3R and PEC right now with the Gap Relays. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Josh?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I talked about what the Gap means to PEC as an organization and to, PEC staff individually. And there's certainly more to say about that, but really the reason we're involved and the way in which we're involved in the relay is as sustainability partner. And what that means chiefly is that PEC worked with you guys to estimate what the greenhouse gas emissions overall from all the race operations, all the transportation, all the various boots on the ground, support services, I don't know, lighting and AV and everything you guys bring.
Everything, top to bottom, right?
There is a calculable climate impact for each of those things. So we crunched the numbers. We worked with an organization called the Bonneville Environmental Foundation, and this is what they do. They support organizations making those calculations, and then they facilitate the transaction of a carbon offset. So really, that's what we did. We provided carbon offsets equivalent to the impact of race operations.
Yep. And a carbon offset, this was new to me today. I was just reading up on it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but when you're having that carbon footprint, you commit to donating a certain amount of money towards some organization that's going to be putting, funding towards clean energy, whether it be wind or water. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah, it's the mechanics of it are probably more complex than I'm qualified to really explain, and it's not a one-to-one exactly, but the idea is it's an equivalent. So the funding from our purchase of those offsets will go to support specifically renewable energy. I think wind power is what we singled out, but a variety of renewable energy projects and also water restoration work. So those dollars go directly to support environmental projects. So the impact of the GAP relay environmentally is, it's one of the, I think it's probably safe to say one of the greenest races in the country at this point.
That's so neat. That's such an amazing badge to have, on a race, on any kind of event. And again, what better event to do it where you're crossing so much of this beautiful countryside. And I did have a question about that, Josh. You guys are located. Your office is located right here in the same building as P3R, correct?
Right. Well, so we're a statewide organization. We have several offices statewide, and one of them is in Pittsburgh. That's where I'm based, and this is probably kind of the home office in many ways. And so we share a building with you guys, and I think this probably got started just in the hallway and elevator conversations as we all got to know each other.
It was a short walk, wasn't it, Josh?
Yeah, I did.
Short walk. It's, but getting back to last year and, kind of expanding our partnerships is that the educational piece was big for us too, is that, we were able to educate people about sustainability. We handed out trees at the finish line, right? And a lot of people were like, what the hell am I getting a tree for?
The saplings,
The saplings. But they were able to go back and really dive into what we were doing and be like, wow, that is super cool. And I think the education piece and the process that we've done with our partnership has been truly amazing. So,
I mean, that's certainly one of the things that is appealing to us about this partnership. Education is a big part of what we do. And in fact, on the subject of offsets, I can tell you that I think as a result of our work with P3R last year on the relay, PEC got interested in and has since pursued offsetting all of our corporate operations. So we are offset as well now, and that came out of, we educated ourselves on that. And so now we're kind of pivoting toward who else might be interested in this. It turns out carbon offsets are a very accessible consumer product. You can go online and figure out what your individual impact as, just as a citizen might be, or your business organization you work for, and purchase the offsets. It's fairly affordable and it's quite painless. So now we kind of want to spread the word that that's an option for everybody.
It's important, right? I mean, now more than ever with just everything that's changing with climate, it's the right thing to do. And it's really encouraging to hear that it is simpler than you would think to be able to contribute that way. That's really neat. Josh, I have just some personal background questions for you. So you have some experience in radio.
Yeah, I do. I was in radio for about 20 years, the last 5 of those at the NPR station here in Pittsburgh, where I was the morning host for a while. And I made the jump to PEC in 2016. And largely because PEC was, seemed to me at the time, very forward-looking in terms of how it communicates with its constituencies and audiences. There was already a podcast established at PEC before I arrived. That was one of the things that made it appealing to me. So, I continue to produce that podcast for PEC, among other sort of multimedia projects.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you were at NPR, were you focused on environmental? Were you speaking, towards the environment, or were there?
So not as like a beat assignment per se. And in fact, I was the anchor, which meant I was reporting on whatever came across my desk that day. The actual work, the actual journalism was done by real reporters. I got to do that occasionally, but mostly my job was like get up super early, drink too much coffee, and read the news.
Read what they tell you to read.
More or less. But having said that, there's quite a bit. I mean, obviously, the environment is a huge story. I was arriving in Pennsylvania right as the Marcellus shale boom was really hitting a fever pitch, and that was very much a topic I can recall of our coverage at that time. Continues to be. So I hung out for 5 years and kind of got to know Pennsylvania politics and government and environmental policy, sort of from a distance. And so that made it easier in some ways to jump into this environmental NGO world. I already knew some of the names. I already knew some of the agencies a little bit.
I've listened to your podcast and it's tremendous.
You've been on the podcast.
I didn't want to.
That's why he thinks it's tremendous.
Well, no, here's where I'm going with this is that what is your tip to me and Eric as we go down this podcast journey and try to get better at this? Like, tell us, like, cause you're really good at the podcast game and we want to be good, but we need some pointers.
We need pearls of wisdom.
Yeah.
You guys are going to be fine. I'll happy to help in whatever way I can, but it's so cool that you are taking on this project. I am an evangelist for podcasting and have been since I was in radio. So I'm happy to do that pitch today. When I was working in radio and looking at it as a really accessible tool for not just media organizations, but anybody that has an audience that they want to communicate with, it struck me that audio is really accessible. It's a low barrier to entry technology-wise. It's a fairly manageable learning curve in terms of the production. And what you get back from it is a really high level of engagement with your audience. You might not have a huge audience. Certainly, it's not apples to oranges when you compare with like social media metrics. You are not going to reach the same number of people in absolute terms. Mm-hmm. But the experience that the people who are listening to your podcast have is so much richer and more intimate than pretty much anything else that you might do as a small or medium-sized nonprofit organization. The people that are going to sit down and listen to 20 or 30 minutes of an interview are people that not only are going into that experience with a fairly high degree of investment in the subject, but they come away from it that much more enriched and that much more engaged.
Wow. You got all that, Eric?
I got it all.
I'm glad you're in the building, Josh.
Josh, I think you're being very generous and very kind. It's so nice to meet you. I did really quickly want to just get back to your running because obviously you're a runner. And when you're not running the Gap, when is your normal hours of running?
Oh man, so pre-COVID or now?
Oh, right.
I'm still. Yeah, that's probably another discussion for another day. But
it's another podcast.
Sure.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Today I managed to get in a quick 4-miler before I got started on work. So in some ways, this working arrangement, obviously I'm at home. There's some more flexibility to it. Historically, I have been a long Sunday run guy, and then 1 or 2 or maybe 3 other shorter workouts in the week, unless I'm training for something specific, and then it might be a little bit more rigorous, but pretty casual at this point.
Gotcha. And what's your favorite leg of the Gap? Have you said you biked the Gap, so you've been over the whole thing. What's your favorite part?
Well, yeah, one of the things that was exciting about this year's relay route before it switched to virtual was the direction flip. So that meant we were going to be going through some of the most scenic locations in the Laurel Highlands in daylight. So I was looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I don't know, who knows what I would have ended up running, but I have ridden it. And the area really between Cumberland and I want to say, I don't know, maybe Confluence is kind of the sweet spot for me. And there you get the Continental Divide and the Mason-Dixon line and just some of the most spectacular vistas. That's kind of my favorite part of the Gap right now.
Okay. Very cool. Just one last question about the Gap. When you, other than running it in the Gap Relay. If you had to pick a time of year to recommend for our listeners or just anyone in general to go and experience the Gap, what time of year do you think is best?
The first time I rode the Gap was like a week after Labor Day weekend. And so it was still warm and mild. It was, starting to feel a little bit cool, fall weather, but there was nobody out there. If you go in the middle of the summer, you're going to see a lot more people, especially now with social distancing. Maybe that's an important consideration for folks. But I found that like just at the very beginning of the off season, had the place entirely to myself. But that's for a bike ride. You can, it's kind of open year round, I believe. Running, you can run anywhere, anytime. So time of year, I don't think it really matters, but if you want to have a multi-day through ride experience and you're stopping along the way, I'd recommend like early fall. It's probably the time.
That'd be my bet too. Whenever, maybe some leaves are starting to turn, it's
exactly
visually, it's got to be one of the best time of the year to go.
Definitely.
Well, Josh, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been exciting. It's been perfect again with this time of year, with this 8-week period being a part of the Gap Relay. Have you run your legs yet?
No, not yet. Well, John Walliser, our policy guy, we all got a text first thing in the morning Friday, before I'd even seen the email saying, "Hey, the relay is officially open. Start posting your times." John had already done his leg.
He was ahead of the game.
Photos, so typical overachiever.
Of course.
I'm more type B, but I'll get to it. Looking forward to it.
Now, are you guys planning on doing any kind of virtual celebration as a team, or maybe like a socially distanced celebration after you're all done?
Oh yeah, I think, you know what? I don't know that we have made any concrete plans in that area yet, but I'd be surprised if something like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
During the relay itself, over the course of these next 6 or 8 weeks, several of us are going to be making an effort to gather video and audio and photos and sharing those. And so hopefully some kind of cool multimedia project will come out the other end of this thing.
Nice.
If we get together as a group and celebrate virtually or physically at some social distance, that'll probably be represented as well. I can't overstate how great an experience like the Gap Relay is for coworkers to get to know each other, build those bonds as a team building exercise. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Well, Josh, I want to thank you for the partnership too. You guys have been great, and we can't wait to see you next year live, going from Pittsburgh to Cumberland.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome. Something to look forward to for sure.
And
well, thanks for having me on, guys.
I've got one more question before you go, Josh.
Yeah.
This is the one that we're going to be turning into a routine question. I don't know if you did this on any of your podcasts, having one question you ask every guest. But it's a pretty simple one, but it kind of gets you put on the spot. If you had the one thing about you that is going to surprise our listeners to hear, what is it?
Oh boy.
No, it's a thinker. See, as the podcast gets a little bit more popular, our guests will come in knowing I've got to have this in my pocket.
That's right. Well, yeah, you're kind of giving it away now.
Right. But that's okay, because I feel bad putting you on the spot. So,
okay. Yeah, so this is the one I bust out in all of the meetings where you're supposed to share a fun fact about yourself. So when I was a child, my brother and I both took piano lessons, and at some point we worked up a 2-piano duet that was like Scott Joplin ragtime music. And my mother, I think she must have instigated this. I can't believe we would have come up with this on our own. But my mother started entering us in local county fair talent competitions all over the state of Iowa, which is where I grew up. There's a statewide talent competition that comes out of that's at the state fair every year, and it's on TV. It's a big deal in Iowa.
Gosh.
And my brother and I, for several summers, had a touring act. We went around all these county fairs and played ragtime piano, and ended up at the statewide televised competition on more than one occasion.
Wow. This is tremendous.
You're a successful traveling performer.
Haven't kept up with it. But.
Oh man, we got to call Ryan Seacrest. American Idol needs you now.
Yeah, no, I think I'm good. I think I'm okay with that being behind me.
Yeah, PEC needs you more. Pennsylvania needs you more. So,
I hope so.
Very cool.
Well, thanks again for having me on. This is a lot of fun, and best of luck with this project. It's going to be great.
Thanks, Josh.
Really appreciate your time. Take care and best of luck with your legs in the relay. Have fun.
All right. Thanks. Looking forward to it.
Very cool. All right, guys. I want to take a second to say thank you to our special guests, Josh Raulerson from the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, and of course, my co-host, Troy Schooley. Troy, do you have anything else to say right now? How'd it go?
I thought this was great. Like I said, the Gap Relay is one of my favorite events. PEC is one of our favorite partners. And even though we had to have a virtual event this year, people are out there running the Gap Trail. They're running all areas of the city, the region, the state, the country. So it's been great to see thus far. So
yeah, that's what I've been saying about all these virtual events is that, you know, it really opens the door for people who might not have been able to come and be at the actual race site in the past. And now they're able to do it wherever they want, which is really neat in a lot of ways. So, yep. The Gap is incredible, folks. If you haven't done it in the past, be sure to sign up for it next year. Something that's really cool, guys, is that the race registration is still open at this time. I believe it's an early date in August when we will be closing registration. So you guys can still be a part of the Gap Relay this year, the virtual edition. You can compete in it at any place that you want to, and you can just have a great time and be a part of the fun. And you can let your friends in Germany or Australia know about it too, and they can register also.
It's a really great deal. The only thing that we ask is, you know, and it's not forced, but to make a donation to the ATA. Because like I said, we need to maintain this beautiful resource that we have in our backyard.
Well, that's what this is all about. And obviously there would be no Gap Relay if it weren't for the ATA. Obviously, both in Pennsylvania and in Maryland, it maintains a 150-mile trail from Cumberland to Pittsburgh. It took 35 years for them to complete this trail. Cost over $80 million to do it. And obviously those costs are still going on in order to maintain it. So guys, it's very important that we contribute, and it makes the Gap Relay that much more necessary. Remember, guys, to give feedback for what you just heard or saw, be sure to use @RunWithP3R on any and all social media platforms. You can also follow us there for exciting information, including when our next episode will be airing. This has been Behind the Start Line. I'm your host, Eric Burnett. Until next time, have fun and keep moving.